Hello students, Mr. John here with Chapter 9, Lesson 3. This lesson is called The First Political Parties. I told you we'd be talking about that. A new party like the Federalist Party. Alright, so today we got lots of vocab, a lot of politicking going on, and in the end, the assignment for the day is a discussion post. It's going to be asking you who you identify most with, the Federalists or the Democratic Republicans. We're going to go a lot over what their different beliefs are, so pay attention throughout the lesson, and then you won't have to go back and reread it to answer the assignment. So that's my little tip of the day for you. Let's get into it, shall we? So George Washington is seen as a legend, and rightly so, but every man is fallible. No man is perfect or above the vices of humanity. George Washington was not in a political party, and really the only president that can make that boast. He even warned against them, saying that they could divide the nation. He's like a savant, like a fortune teller with that, huh? So Washington may not have been a party, but he clearly sided with one party more than the other. It is said that people will naturally begin to congregate with people with whom they have common ground, makes sense, and to believe otherwise, as Washington did, was a little naive. So with this in mind, we learn about the first political parties, how they emerged, and the presidency of our nation's second president, John Adams. Let's talk about it. Let's start with the factions. So the factions that would become the nation's first political parties started their formation in George Washington's cabinet. On one side, you had Alexander Hamilton. Remember, Hamilton's the guy who was all about creating the national bank. Do you remember who on the cabinet did not like that idea? It was Thomas Jefferson, the very writer of the Declaration of Independence. He was also on the cabinet. I believe he was Secretary of State. This divide, however, between, say, Hamilton and Jefferson was not just in the cabinet. This divide was really, this ideological divide was all throughout the entire Congress. Here's Thomas Jefferson. Now, this Hamilton-Jefferson divide led to two distinct parties. Alexander Hamilton and the folks that thought like him became what we call Federalists. Federalists believe in a strong federal government. Strong federal government? Federalist. Makes sense, right? They took liberties with the implied powers, which, we remember, are powers not explicitly mentioned in the Constitution, but implied. Remember how Hamilton thought he could make a national bank because the Constitution gives the federal government the power to borrow money in coin currency. This is the perfect example of their ideology. They err on the side of more federal power. Because nowhere in the Constitution does it say the federal government will make a national bank, but they say, but it says this, and this implies that we can create a national bank. That's very Federalists. They just interpret the Constitution as giving them that authority. Here's Alexander Hamilton. On the other side of the aisle, I pointed to the left before, we'll point to the right, you have Thomas Jefferson and what became the Democratic Republicans, or just Republicans for short. Not the same as Republicans that come from the Civil War and so forth and so on to today. The Republicans, the Democratic Republicans, Republican for short, believe in a very strict reading of the Constitution. If the Constitution didn't say it specifically, it was not allowed. This is in part why Jefferson and his like-minded companions did not want a national bank, because it was not specifically mentioned in the Constitution. I have this nice graphic here that would probably help you with your assignment of Federalists and Democratic Republicans. Now, we said that Washington is claimed to have been above factions, but he was indeed partisan. He frequently sided with Hamilton and the Federalists, so one might say he was Federalist-minded. Now, there were other ideological differences between the parties. Federalists believed that the role of the normal citizen, the common man, should be kept to voting in the representative democracy that we are. They believed that only the educated and wealthy were fit to run the government. The Republicans believed differently and thought that liberty would only be safe so long as ordinary men played a significant role in government. So Federalists were sort of elitists, wanting the common man only to have the power to vote, whereas the Democratic Republicans thought that your common Joe Schmo should have even more active role in government. Now, Washington saw this ideological split happening and tried to stop it, but to no avail. The tension in his cabinet between Hamilton and Jefferson actually got so tense that both of them had to quit their positions in the cabinet. So 2 people quit from the first cabinet. Jeez Louise, talk about needing some work on conflict resolution. So that's the Washington presidency. Let's talk about the election of 1796. So this is fun. In the election of 1776, the 2 new political parties, Federalists and Democratic Republicans, had what is called a caucus. There are still caucuses around on occasion. It's essentially a meeting by the political parties, like a clubhouse meeting where they get together and all decide on who they're going to have run for them. Now, at this time in our history, the president did not run with a vice president like they do now. Like now you do a ticket and it's like, Trump Pence or Hillary Biden or Obama Biden or whoever ran against him, Reagan and Bush. There's always 2 names on there. At the time, you ran 2 presidential candidates, and I guess they hoped that both their candidates would win first and second place. That's how it worked. Whoever won first place in the election became president, and whoever won second place would become vice president. So both parties picked 2 people they were going to run as president. So I guess let's talk about who they were. The Federalists ran John Adams and Charles Pinckney, and the Republicans ran Thomas Jefferson and Aaron Burr. And they just hoped that their 2 guys would win first and second place. Here's what actually happened. John Adams, the Federalist, won first place, becoming the president. But Thomas Jefferson, the Democratic Republican, won second place, so he became vice president. So you had a president from one party and a vice president from the other party. Some real Big Brother-esque reality TV drama right there. Pretty awkward turtle. All right. Adams seemed like a pretty solid president-elect. He served 2 terms as Washington's vice president. He was a very prominent patriot in Massachusetts during the Revolution. Remember, he gained a lot of street cred defending those redcoats from the Boston Massacre we learned about way chapters ago. That was him. He was a lawyer. One would think he'd be a really awesome sauce president. However, his 1-term presidency was tumultuous. Let's talk about it. We started right off the bat with what is called the XYZ affair. You see, when Adams assumed the presidency, France is what I call poopy pants in America. They were all mad about Jay's Treaty. They thought that the United States was getting buddy-buddy with Britain and favoring Britain, of all people, over France, of all people. The French actually went so far as to start seizing American ships bound for Britain. We did a lot of trade with them. To try and improve these relations, Adams sent a team to Paris in 1797, trying to work it all out. But France was being kind of a drama queen, and instead of sending actual officials to meet the American team, they sent 3 agents who demanded a bribe and a loan. These names were withheld, and that is why they are called XYZ. 3 agents, Agent X, Agent Y, Agent Z, and that's why it's called the XYZ affair. So they were demanding a bribe and a loan to talk and make this treaty, and the Americans refused and were quite insulted when Adams found out. He was in turn what I call super poopy pants about it, and told Congress to prepare for war with France. The whole XYZ affair had implications at home. People became suspicious of the influences of foreign governments, and they also became suspicious of aliens, but not those types of aliens. Aliens as in people that live in a country but are not citizens. A lot of new aliens in the nation, so people that were moving in that weren't quite citizens yet, supported a lot of what many considered the radical ideals of the French Revolution, and it was postulated that their loyalties may lie with France and not the USA. These people were more inclined to be Democratic Republicans than Federalists, supporting those French Revolution ideals that were, radically liberal at the time. And as a result, in 1798, the Federalists passed the Alien and Sedition Acts. Sedition means activities aimed at weakening the government. So with these acts passed, Adams could imprison or deport aliens that he thought were dangerous. He also made it harder for them to become citizens, which meant it became harder for them to vote. Where's the partisan in this here? Well, like I mentioned, a lot of those aliens that were coming in, their beliefs more aligned with the Democratic Republicans, so the Democratic Republicans saw it as a federalist, making it harder for new immigrants to come in, become citizens, and vote because they were going to vote for Democratic Republicans. So you see, this stuff's been going on since the beginning. Everything you see in the news is not really that new. It's just the same old stuff wrapped up again. So we have that. The Republicans, like I said, did not like these acts, these alien and sedition acts, one bit. They thought it was an assault on the rights of the common man, and they responded with what was called the Virginia and Kentucky resolutions. These resolutions said that the alien and sedition acts were unconstitutional, they would not be enforced, and that states had the right to nullify or overturn laws passed by the federal government that they found to be unconstitutional. This is a pretty big Republican move. After all, they do support limited federal government. And the issue of states' rights versus federal government would continue to be a struggle for years. What powers belong to the states? What powers belong to the federal government? And if you ask me, they're still fighting over it. Now, Federalists wanted war with France, but Adams, the Federalist president, refused. He was actually able to work out a treaty in 1800 to get the French to stop seizing American ships. His party, the Federalists, were not happy with this treaty that Adams made, and it caused a split in the party, those that supported Adams and those that didn't. With the political party split, that would help Republicans seize the White House very soon in the next election. But to be continued in Chapter 10, we're finishing there. Your assignment, as mentioned previously, is to make a post. Here's what I want you to do. Answer this question. With what political party, Federalist or Democratic Republicans, do you most identify with? Remember, none of these parties exist anymore. They're different from any party that we have now. So look at the lesson. Maybe look at that chart and go, I more agree with these people. There you have it. What I want to see is which party you like, why, an example of something that the party did that supported that you liked. I'll post first as an example. So there you go. That's it. Have a wonderful day. Let me know if you need anything.